This is the 2025 ROG Flow Z13, and it might look like a gaming laptop, but it's actually a gaming tablet. And it's not just any tablet. This is the most powerful tablet ever. So let's find out what makes this thing tick, and more importantly, how much it can handle. And please like and subscribe if you like these type of videos. The Flow Z13 is an absolutely stunning device. On the back, it has this little window into its motherboard, which looks very pretty with the RGB lighting. You'll also find ROG branding across its body, and overall, it should be pretty obvious that this thing is made for gaming. All of the guts of this baby are in its top part, so it is quite thick, but compared to the average gaming laptop, it is very thin. The tablet itself is made of a mix of plastic and aluminum, so it is sturdy. And the keyboard cover is made of some kind of faux leather, so it feels nice, and it smells nice as well. But because it is a detachable keyboard, it does flex a bit. This wasn't a huge issue during typing though. And to my surprise, it's actually quite comfortable to use on your lap, if you sit in one place that is. But you need two hands to pick it up. Trying to use this thing with one hand is pretty much a no-go. It's not a very handy package to be moving around with, but at least it's not too heavy. But the specs that this thing has is absolutely ridiculous. This puppy rocks the new AMD Ryzen AI MAX 390, which has a very powerful Radeon 8050S iGPU. And this chip has the most powerful iGPU ever, full stop. AMD claims that this thing is on par with a laptop RTX 4060, which is absolutely nuts. But I'll check that for myself later on in this video. Now the Flow Z13 is also available in a higher spec model with the AMD Ryzen AI MAX 395 Plus. Who at AMD came up with this shit? But this higher spec model is a lot more expensive and really not that much faster. Also, I haven't seen anyone cover the cheaper model yet, so here I am. Since it is a tablet, naturally it has less space for ports. But this is the first tablet that I've ever seen with an actual USB-A port, which is great. Now its charger has a 200-watt gallium nitride brick, which is pretty portable and uses Asus's new connector, which is quite nice. The overall package is on the heavier side, but it's still manageable. But you could, of course, just use a different charger to keep the weight down, since it supports up to 100 watts of USB-C charging. Now its keyboard is very nice. Like I said before, it is detachable and connects to the laptop with these little pins and hooks up with some very strong magnets. You can either lay the keyboard flat down like this, or you can get a more sturdy grip by attaching it up here. It is more flexy than a regular laptop keyboard, but it's very sturdy for a folio keyboard. Now it can rattle and bend a bit if you're rough on it, so it might not be for everyone. But it uses the same keys as on the Flow X13 and TUF A14, and I absolutely adore those keys. They are very satisfying to type on. On your lap, it's definitely a bit flimsy to type on this keyboard though. Now it also has an RGB backlight with one lighting zone, which is nice. It doesn't get super bright, but in regular scenarios it is more than usable. The trackpad is also very nice. I believe it's made of glass, so it does feel quite high quality, but because it doesn't have much support on the bottom, it is a bit flimsy to use. The clicks themselves, however, are excellent. Again, it feels like the same trackpad that they use on the Flow X13, so it's definitely nice to use. Which brings us to its display. The Flow Z13 has a 16:10 13-inch IPS display with a very high refresh rate of 180 Hz. And this screen is gorgeous. It gets plenty bright at 500 nits, so outdoor use is possible. And with that 180 Hz, this is one of the smoothest displays I have ever used. And you will notice the difference between pretty much any other display you have and this one. Now since it's a tablet, it of course also has a touchscreen, which is mainly handy for clicking things quickly at random moments. You will need to clean those fingerprints off though, since it's got a relatively glossy display. Now this is not an OLED panel, so you won't get perfect blacks, but it still has gorgeous colors with that IPS panel. Overall, this will probably be one of the best displays in your house. And it can be propped up with this kickstand right here, which can go back quite a bit. Asus has gotten pretty known for their good speakers by now. And while these are good, they're not the best I've ever heard. It's got quite small front-firing speakers and obviously not much space to work with, but no worries. For casual use like watching YouTube videos or playing games, these speakers will be more than fine. Since the Flow Z13 is a tablet, it actually has a front and back camera. And the back one is quite a bit better in terms of quality. Which finally brings us to performance. Let's run some benchmarks on this thing to see how fast it really is. In Cinebench R23, it scores desktop-like results, reaching far above the CPU in even my own desktop PC. And in 3D Mark TimeSpy, we can see that it really does have the most powerful iGPU we have ever seen. Like AMD said, it scores around the same as a laptop RTX 4060, and it does not lose much performance on battery, which is awesome to see. But all of these are just numbers. How does it handle some actual games?
Fuck you, man. Huh? Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, dude. What is that going on?
Wie dat een hond die verdrinkt.
In terms of performance, this might be one of the most impressive devices I have ever reviewed. The fact that an iGPU can perform the same or sometimes even better than an RTX 4060 is absolutely crazy. And on the Flow Z13, you can actually configure how much VRAM it has, since the CPU and GPU have shared memory. So if you're playing a game that requires a lot of VRAM, say for example The Last of Us, you can just allocate more memory to the iGPU. And this might actually be the ideal machine for people that run AI large language models, since those require a lot of VRAM. And I don't really know any gaming laptops that can have this much VRAM. In games, it got stable high frame rates, and on battery, it only lost like 10 to 15%, which is a lot better than some gaming laptops. But it can't do very much with that performance if it runs out of battery. Well, for battery life, I tested it in two scenarios: normal light use and gaming. During light use, I played a YouTube video at full brightness, so 500 nits, and at 60 Hz, with the keyboard backlight turned off. And it lasted 7 to 8 hours, which is pretty good. And during the gaming scenario, I played Battlefield 1 with the display at 180 Hz, and with the power profile on performance. Here it got roughly an hour of battery life, so it isn't really better at gaming on battery than other gaming laptops. I tried to lock the display at 60 Hz and the game at 60 FPS, but that didn't really do much for battery life. I think because the iGPU in here is so powerful that it might not be very power efficient. Now the Flow Z13's cooling solution is quite unique. Normally, gaming laptops pull in air from the bottom of the laptop, since that's where all the hot parts are. But this is a very inefficient way of managing heat and can easily block the fans. Well, the Z13 has all of those hot parts on the back of the device, so it has all the space it needs for cooling. It pulls air through the back of the device and exhausts it at the top. So if you're using it on your lap, you won't get hot legs or infertility, and your hands don't get hot either, since you're just touching a separate keyboard. This efficient way of cooling keeps the device very cool during gaming or heavy workloads without even a hint of discomfort. And less heat also means less fan noise, so it doesn't get very loud for a gaming device. But because this thing is a tablet, it has basically no upgradeability. It does have this single small M.2 slot hidden behind the stand, but this is only for the smaller 2230 M.2 size, which are quite a bit more expensive. And since it needs very fast memory to be able to share it between the CPU and the GPU, the memory is also soldered, and the rest of its parts are also soldered. So you better buy a high-spec version of it if you want it to last a very long time. Now, this is a very novel device, so it should be quite expensive compared to the competition, right? But starting at around 1900 to 2000 bucks, it's actually priced quite similarly to other thin and light gaming laptops. The more expensive model with that AI plus Deluxe Max chip thingy is a lot more money though. And although a model exists with 128 gigabytes of shared RAM, I couldn't find any pricing information on it. But I can imagine that it would be ridiculously expensive. This is not a perfect device though, and I did have some issues with it. First of all, the detachable keyboard. At random times, the touchpad either didn't work or had very delayed input. I don't know if it uses a combination of Bluetooth and the pogo pins, but this can be quite annoying. The backlighting also randomly just turns off sometimes, and I need to manually reboot the entire system to make it work again. I don't know what causes this, but luckily it isn't a huge issue. And while I may be in the minority here, I absolutely hate the AMD Adrenalin software. Trying to find how to screen record with an AMD GPU is basically like navigating a maze. And sometimes I can't even enter the AMD Adrenalin software. It just tells me it doesn't exist. I've had these issues with pretty much every single AMD GPU device that I've had, and it is very annoying. Which brings us to our conclusion. Is the Flow Z13 worth it? Well, I believe it is, but only for a certain group of people. Let me get it straight, this thing is not a laptop. So it's a bit clunky to be moving around with it like it is one. You can't really use it with one hand, and the Folio keyboard is obviously more flimsy than a regular laptop's keyboard. But in my opinion, the Flow Z13 is the device that solves laptop gaming. And by laptop gaming, I mean actually playing games on the top of your lap. All the cooling happens at the back of the device, so you never notice any heat on your legs or hands. And unlike with a laptop, if it gets too hot around your legs, you won't get infertile. Win-win. The iGPU in here is an absolute beast that can handle basically any game you throw at it. I still think a regular laptop form factor is better for doing work and for doing work on your lap. But if you like tablets like the Microsoft Surface and you want to play some games on the side, this thing is basically a match made in heaven. But I do want to know, how does it stack up to an actual gaming laptop with a dedicated GPU? Well, its older brother, the Zephyrus G14, is basically that, and it's priced very similarly. So let's compare them in the next video. Now let me give a huge shout out to my YouTube members. Inky Binky, Martijn Snijkers, Mr. Frosty Dude, Dropzone1, and Thomas. All my YouTube members get early access to content, a shout out at the end of every video, and it'll also support me as a creator to make these videos. In other words, you'll be part of the Cool Guys Club. I will see you all then. Bye bye.